Hello and welcome. So, this is a yoga teacher training module that I have named Teaching Yoga with Humility in Puerto Rico. And it is a reflection on the decolonization, the responsibility, and the true community integration that really needs to take place when you're teaching here on the island. So I'm Erica Garcia Abigail, and if you're watching this, that means that you're one of my teacher trainees or probably one of my mentees or found this as part of a larger discussion. And that also means that part of this you're part of this like sacred ripple of awakening teachers who understand that yoga is not just something that we do, that it's something that we become, and as people within the communities that we are in sacred leadership. And so this particular module is a vital one, and especially for those who plan to teach here in Puerto Rico, which is a land with very deep ancestral memory and land that deserves to be honored and not just like trampled on and visited. And let me begin by saying that this guide isn't meant to be perfect, right? Nor is it meant to offend. It's meant to be a reflection from even my own lived experience as a Puerto Rican woman who is from the diaspora, who's now returned and is now living back on the island. And so my hope is that this sparks honest conversations and like soul level reflection about cultural sensitivity, decolonization, and literally our sacred responsibility that comes with teaching yoga in a colonized and complex space. That people look at the beach and and sunrises and really forget exactly what energy is here. So by now I'm sure that you've already listened to my part one video, which is a general need for the decolonization of yoga while teaching here in the West, mainly on the mainland, and some of the practices that I gave there. So now this video is more in line, like, okay, we've done the regular decolonization and ethics in yoga, and then now let's take this a deeper step and let's focus solely on the decolonization of yoga in Puerto Rico specifically, and also specifically for those that are considered non-Puerto Rican or non-Spanish speaking individuals who are living on the island looking to teach yoga or do other energetic and shamanic offerings, because particularly because I'm now here doing teacher training. So I would be remiss not to add this to the program. And you know what? Si eres de aquí y entiende inglés y tú encontraste este video, bueno, yo te invito a escucharlo también. Porque como yo soy la formadora de profesores de yoga, mi estudio aquí en Humacao, tú también deberías de saber que esto es la mensaje que yo estoy transmitiendo a mis alumnos. Y porque yo no estoy parte de ese otro sistema. Okay? So decolonization in context. When it comes to Puerto Rico, um, I guess to truly decolonize yoga in Puerto Rico, we must first decolonize our own presence here. Like, how did you get here? Why are you here? Right? And we can't teach yoga in a colonized mindset, not when the land beneath our feet has endured centuries of it. We just can't. Right? So Puerto Rico has a tapestry that is woven deeply within the Taino, the African, and the Spanish roots. There is a little bit of Dutch and Italian mixed in there too, some other cultures, but mainly those are the big three. And each thread tells a story of survival, of resistance, and reclamation. And this isn't just history, its energy still pulses through the island today. And as we come to teach yoga here, right, it's vital to embrace these stories and to embrace them and not throw them in the back like background noise, right? Because that is what's integral to our understanding as yoga teachers, right? And to teach here with integrity, you must feel the pulse. You must listen for it. You must approach this land not as a backdrop for your videos or for your brand or for your tax breaks, right? But as a living, breathing entity with spirit and history. For example, Before leading an outdoor class, you found a place that looks beautiful. Take 2 minutes, take 5 minutes, take 10 minutes, whatever it takes. Take time to learn where you are. Pronounce the town correctly. Pronounce the location correctly. You know, that quiet forest clearing may have once been a ceremonial space. That beach you practice on may have ancestral or sacred ties or slavery ties. You know, ask the locals, learn the names of the plants and of the winds and of the little curves of everything, the wildlife. Make reverence before you make an offering, right? Invite the locals to even come and participate by like giving a quick intro and letting them come in as a donation or sliding basis, right? And yes, when speaking with the locals, remember, we're basically, like I said earlier, kind of triracial, right? So we come in all shapes, sizes, colors. We come with it all, right? Some will speak English, but don't expect them to speak English because remember, English is not their first language, so they don't have to. So don't come with this entitled like I spoke English and how come they're not responding to me, okay? Because they're not that comfortable, most locals, and you have to respect that. Listen to the Puerto Rican voices. What do I mean by that? I mean, to decolonize yoga here, we must prioritize listening. I've been saying this over and over already, right? Because when I say listening, I'm talking about listening, not listening to respond, but listening to understand. And this means actively engaging in conversations in the local communities, learning their stories, and understanding their day to day struggles. What I mean is go to the local cafes and sit and listen. What are the conversations taking place? Listen to the little abuelitas talking about, oh, how the island has changed and blah, 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 and engage in conversations with them and listen. They're so full of wisdom, the people here. And they have been here for all the evolutions of what has happened on the island. They can give you the history that you can't get anywhere else. And visit the community centers, not just the local yoga studios, right? And as yoga teachers, ask the local teachers and the healers and the elders about their own wellness traditions, about how they use the herbs and what prayers are they using and the rhythms of the medicine and of the land. Ask them. So here's a reflection I have for you. Take a moment and think. How can you make your teaching less about your expression and more about listening to not only your soul, but the soul of the community that you're serving? It's quite beautiful when you pause and think from that lens, right? It allows you to teach what they need organically because then now you understand your role as a teacher is to provide what the local community requires, not just what you want to offer them, but what do they need, right? And ask the questions, listen deeply, and adapt your teachings to serve their needs effectively. Do they really need another aerial thing or another fast-paced class? Probably not. They could use more variety. So when you listen first, your classes will naturally become medicine and not performance. Because in their minds, especially if they're new to yoga, they think it's all performance and physical, and it's not. And you as a teacher can teach that. Respect the land. Puerto Rico is not your vacation escape. If you're here, that means you're living here. If you're teaching here, most likely it's because you live here. And it is a home for many. And when I say many, I mean sacred ancestral ground that carries the heartbeat of generations of strong, resilient people. So respect the land. So respect for the land is it's quite vital, right? It's not respect for the land like as a slogan. This is a practice. It's part should be part of your practice. Just respect, right? And it should be one of the pillars of your practice in teaching as well, especially if you're going to be teaching here, because this island carries, like I said, generations of memory. And you as yoga teachers, we should be even more aware of the fact that we must respect and honor what is sacred, right? And here, the land and the space is what's sacred, and it must be approached with humility and reverence. And that's how you respect the land. And then part of that respect is learning the land. And that could be quite fun, right? Become familiar with the local ecology, the forests, the valleys, the mountains, the rivers. Learn the traditions and the sacred spaces and how did they get their names and who was here before. It's so rich in culture and history. And many teachers venture into the forests and the coastal areas for their practices without even acknowledging the indigenous significance. It takes a moment to just say, thank you, Mother Earth, for this beautiful tree. You know, recognize that the soil that you walk upon has absorbed centuries of joy and pain. And recognize that you're the visitor. So tread lightly and tread with respect. And the earth will be there for you. When you treat every space as sacred, it will support you. So appreciate the land for its beauty, of course, because it's beautiful, but also respect the spiritual importance and never appropriate its tools or ceremonies for personal gain. Always respect where it comes from and don't try to change it, right? So as yoga teachers, here's another example, right? So if you're hosting a retreat or a day thing, start with the pranams of the land. Invite offerings, right? So have the participants offer a gratitude of silence. Make a beach forest cleanup as part of the day's offerings of service and encourage everyone by handing out bags and saying, before we begin, everybody must take 20 minutes and go walk and say hello to the land and clean up the debris, right? And then on the flip side, you'll encourage everyone not to leave any trash behind, right? We don't come with extracting and taking. We don't come with entitlement. We come to preserve. The goal is to nourish the land and preserve it and leave it better than we found it. And that is an always, right? And it also doesn't hurt if you're here in Puerto Rico, I have to admit, right, to bring a little bottle or two of spare water, some bags of dog food or a can of dog food, because there are many strays on the beach and they're God's creatures. They didn't ask to be put in this situation. Thankfully, they're pretty harmless. They're just hungry. So by feeding the strays, you actually give back too, right? So that's how we move from using the island to being within right relationship with the island, the land itself, and its creatures. So part of decolonization also is understanding the wounds, the deep wounds that vibrate here, right? The effects of colonization. We're talking economic oppression, forced assimilation, cultural erasure. It's so deeply embedded in Puerto Rico's history, and it continues to echo today. So colonization just didn't leave political scars. And over the time, it's just fractured the identity of the people, our language, our self-worth. Like it just continues to beat the people down. So as I mentioned a moment ago, right, the socioeconomic oppression, the lack of education, the local corruption, the displacement, the migration of talent, the cultural erasure slowly happening also with the investors that are coming in to just buy up the land for tax breaks, but not even with the interest of actually inhabiting the land, cultivating the land, and contributing back to the community for betterment of it, right? All of this is still shaping our day-to-day lives to today, right? So the trauma didn't disappear like when the flag changed in 1898 when it became part of the US. No, it lives in the nervous system of the island, and it lives in the people that are living here. And it continues every day, every year, every political election, knowing that we have no idea. We know we can't vote for higher government of the US, but at any moment they can swift and change anything that really affects us on our day-to-day lives. And then when you bring in the trauma of fight or flight and survival with the hurricane seasons and the power failures and water, and when we lose the water, all of that's not just logistics, right? This is like ancestral exhaustion just repeating itself. And yes, we're resilient, but of all these factors, it can truly weigh down anyone's spirit and make us weary and exhausted, and from the young and the old, and it cannot be denied, it cannot be escaped, and it goes from person to person to person, to the community, to the towns, to it just ripples. So how do we show up as yoga teachers? Well, we show up with presence by saying what we're going to do and doing what we say we're going to do. We show up with service, with seva, giving back. That giving back, like that, we don't run when things get hard. When hurricane season comes, we stay. Not only do we stay, but we stay and we help. We hold space for those that are suffering. We don't pack up our homes and retreat into comfort and like jump on the next flight out of here. Yoga teaches us to stay in the fire. So live that philosophy as the teacher. Live it, right? The next level is there's cultural responsibility versus cultural appropriation. And here's the truth. You don't own yoga. You don't. So yoga is not your brand. It's not a trend. Remember, you have to be respectful of what it is. You have to have reverence. It is a sacred tradition born in India, not in the United States, not in your teacher training manual, Costa Rica, Bali, wherever it is you took it. It was born in India. So when you step into a space to teach yoga here in Puerto Rico, you have to remember that not only are you're representing two borrowed lineages. You're representing the lineage and the teachings that are coming from India, but you're also representing, and you need to speak the language that is understood here in Puerto Rico. So humility is what's going to be your anchor. And if your classes use Sanskrit words or Indian symbols, you must take time to explain these origins. Don't perform them and not honor them. Do not do that, not here. And if you're teaching on the island, you must do it with an awareness that you are also not from this culture either, most of you, right? You're a transplant as well. So when you teach yoga and it's taught solely in English inside these expensive studios in the metro, and you use sacred symbols and terms from India without understanding the cultural significance, it risks becoming a form of cultural appropriation and not healing. You risk also being one that perpetuates exclusivity. So to teach yoga ethically here, you have to consider some of the following, right? These are some practical applications. Why don't you consider Spanish first class or bilingual classes so that everyone feels welcome? And the key here is so that it is inclusive and it is accessible, because we know everyone can benefit from it. How about trying to learn the local history and be aware also of the colorism, the classism, the microaggressions? Learn the local slang too, because Puerto Rican Spanish is different from others, right? So the Puerto Rican culture is very rich. And so while you may be still studying your yoga roots, also learn Puerto Rico's cultural history too. It will totally be beneficial for you. Take the time to learn the culture, the traditions from which yoga originates and from where you're teaching, right? And also, as a culture, remember, like I said earlier, we're a mix of three classes. So some classism, some racial microaggressions, they still run deep here, just like in the South in the US, right? So be very mindful of your own stereotypes. And you're going to have to work on your languaging as well to make sure that your languaging is inclusive and not offensive. So the bottom line is that if you don't know, just ask. Never assume, right? And ask a local, because when we learn, we do better. So ask and learn, and then integrate this new learning into your teachings. And as a yoga teacher, remember you're in sacred leadership, and you want to lead by example. And you want to be in a business that lasts. You want to be in the business of bridging gaps, being the bridge, not the one that builds barriers. So always remember to seek where we're similar, more similar than we are different, because a language in and of itself already separates. So let's bridge those gaps. And by having healthy dialogue, you learn to instill trust in your students. And that is how you'll grow a healthy and beautiful and embraced community. And here's also where you can play a major role in one of these gaps, right? How can we bridge it? Well, the bilingual classes are wonderful. And just remember, you're not here to fix, but what you're here to do is foster understanding. Another way to really be an impact on the yoga community here is to amplify the local voices, right? Use your privilege to lift up other Puerto Rican teachers and not outshine them. Collaborate with local instructors, local artisans, local vendors. Highlight their gifts. Don't retreat to your American counterparts. Don't. You're cutting out a beautiful, rich wisdom that you could be adding to your offerings. And if you have retreats, and you're bringing these locals in, pay them fairly and add them equally to your programming. And honor the indigenous wisdom that is here. Respect and engage like with local religions and practices without co-opting them into your brands. Just learn them so that you learn where people are coming from. This can be especially beautiful, like I said, when you're hosting these retreats and workshops and you aim to include these local Puerto Rican teachers and vendors. You're bridging everything and you're including everyone, and it becomes such a beautiful educational, really encompassing and embodied experience. And when you're looking for these local partnerships, engage deeply with those that are deeply embedded in the island. Do the research. And when you're collaborating with these teachers, honor the indigenous practices. Do opening ceremonies and closing, right? There's a richness in this Puerto Rican culture that elevate their voices. And this way, everyone is seen, everyone is heard, everyone is given a microphone on the stage, in the platform, everyone is valued and everyone learns. And that is what true yoga looks like, union. And be a beacon of that. The other thing is making it affordable and accessible, right? Accessibility isn't optional, it's spiritual. And if you're only teaching to tourists or the upper class, tourist yoga on the beach or in certain areas, then you're unconsciously recreating these systems of exclusion. This is not the first time I said it in this video, and I'm saying it more than once so that you remember this, right? Know who your audience is. And remember that the Puerto Ricans here, well, they're not here to adapt to you. You're here, if you want to teach, you're here to teach and serve them. And the concept of yoga may be new to some that are in the older generations on the island because they may not have been exposed to yoga or yogic practices before. The younger generations have been now, but the older ones may not have. So it will be your job to make sure that it is understandable and accessible to them, and it is you to teach them the benefits of yoga in their day-to-day lives. And that's a beautiful awareness that they can start learning, and you could be the one that teaches them that. Because we all know that it's everyone's day-to-day lives that it benefits, right? So again, you as a teacher, your job is to educate. You're to educate. It is not a religion. That is, it is a philosophical science, because the island is really heavy dogma and religious dogma. So your job is to educate. That asana is part of the whole system. It's not just a physical practice. And that there's breath work and mindfulness and concentration, and the yamas and the niyamas. Teach the 8 limbs. Make them part of your classes. Also, make some of your classes offer donation based, or look at the community and make them an affordable community class. This also encourages a broader access, especially if you're doing like intro to yoga or beginner's intro series, right? Those are going to be way more educational based, simple steps to give them. And that's always in the community, and community should always be accessible, right? And from the yoga teacher's lens example, like I would say, like, start one freely or one monthly, like Yoga para Todos at your local community park. Use the bilingual languaging in simple sequences, in your marketing, breath work, grounding, gratitude, and watch how the yoga transforms when it's not confined to a studio. It has a total different energy. And if you're going to go into community spaces, then choose venues that reflect the communities that you're serving, not just these luxury studios. Teach in plazas, teach in the schools, teach in the community centers, teaching in the open air community spaces, right? Prioritize educating your students. Because when you prioritize educating your students, that they know now that it's not a religion, that it is a philosophy of self-realization, they'll be much more open to asking questions, having open dialogue, right? And like I said, teach asana is one of the 8 limbs, but that the inner peace doesn't require expensive gear, perfect poses, great social media, touching your toes even, right? Or handstands. It's not even that. Stay rooted in service, not in performance. And always prioritize that the practice's purpose overcompensates trying to make it a spectacle, right? So as teachers, we should focus on substance over spectacle. Avoid being part of the trend of the flashy brands and the expensive mats and the bags and the this and the that the locals can't afford. Go to the local Walmart or Rainbow or whatever. Get the 2.99 t-shirt. Who cares, right? Avoid overemphasizing also the physical practice on your social media accounts, right? This is another way where you make it you exclude the average person from even trying to attempt it. And then teach diverse modalities. And if you didn't learn it in your 200, contact me. I do continuing it all the time. Consider incorporating more accessible practices like chair yoga, mindfulness, restorative yoga, community oriented classes that invite local participation. Really, the emphasis, I always say this, stillness is action, but it's more important that there's action in stillness. And these approaches really will benefit everyone's mental and emotional well-being. Especially, they're crucial when we're dealing with constant day-to-day hardships. And some of the last topics I do want to touch on is, remember, this is mutual healing, because as you teach, you learn. This isn't about the hero complex, right? Remember, you came here for a reason, but you're not here to save Puerto Rico. You're not like, Captain, let me save Puerto Rico. And this concept is critical whether you're teaching on or off the island, right? As a teacher, like, you're not there to save anyone. What you're here for is to live and to heal as a teacher alongside them, right? You're not here to save anyone. You're not anyone's savior. You're here to teach, guide, and be with. And the island in and of itself doesn't need rescuing. What it needs is respect. And what the people need is respect. Healing happens when we share breath, when we share our stories and our struggles together. That's where we build solidarity, not dependency, right? And be open to feedback, even when it's a little uncomfortable, right? Be willing to unlearn what you already ingrained here. Encourage dialogue with the local practitioners about your teaching methods and ask them what's resonating, what doesn't, how can I make it better? Listen to their insights and be willing to adapt. And I said it a moment ago, right? Solidarity over the savior complex, right? I just said it, right? Puerto Rico in and of itself, it doesn't need saving. It's always just choose solidarity over savior. What I mean is, don't come in and think you're going to take charge. Come in, stand shoulder to shoulder in with respect, right? In the community, respecting their autonomy, respecting their wisdom. And remember, like, when you're standing in solidarity, what that means is you're standing with, not above. We are with. We are all together here. And yoga is not something that you give. Remember, it's something you share. You share with a deep respect for both its origins, whether it be India or the origins of where you're teaching. That's what I mean. Staying within. not above. None of us are above anyone. So here's some reflective questions that I want for you to like take a moment, pause, grab your journals, place your hand over your heart. Let's take a deep breath and just settle in. Close your eyes if you need to. You can pause this video and write out each question afterwards. And yes, I invite dialogue if you'd like to leave me some comments, right? But right now, I want you to ask yourself, just listen to your breath. So that when I give you the sentence, the answer comes in the whisper. In what ways have I benefited from systems of colonization or privilege while I've been here on the island? How can I teach yoga here in a way that uplifts local Puerto Rican communities with sincerity and respect? How can I ensure that my presence creates belonging and not separation? What am I willing to unlearn so that I may teach with more humility? How can I move from being a guest to becoming a true steward of this land and of the people? How can I move to being more embraced? And then take a moment and think of your current offerings. Think of your week or your month and ask yourself, am I truly using my yoga offerings as a bridge or as a border? Am I opening gates or am I closing them? So I want to close with this. Remember that teaching yoga in Puerto Rico is not just a career path, it's a calling, right? Obviously, if you were called to this island, the pull here is magnetic and it's undeniable. So I'm glad that you listened to the call and that you came. And that this calling is our yoga practice. Simply what it asks is for humility, reverence, and courage to look at the way we participate in the very systems that we are trying to heal. We can do better, right? It invites us to listen more than what we speak and how we speak, to serve more than what we're trying to sell, and to remember that yoga is not something that we perform. It is something that we live, and that this journey is not only a living prayer, but it's one that honors both the sacred lineage of yoga, but also the resilience and the vibrant soul and culture here in Puerto Rico. And when you teach here, you don't just guide a practice. You become now part of the island story and this evolution of wellness that is happening on the island, which has been beautiful. So teach with humility, teach with open ears, with an open heart, and with an open heart and rhythm that just dances and sings with that little baby coqui and the baby roosters and every other animal that's here, right? So I want to thank you for listening. Thank you for showing up and listening, and for choosing to teach in the spirit of union and not separation, and choosing to teach from a space of learning and unlearning and humility and respect. And I pray and wish that all of your teachings always begin and end with sacred truth, right? With these sacred truths that we heal together. Because when you come from that space, todos nos sanamos juntas. Thank you so much for listening. I am Erica Garcia Abigail. You can find me in Puerto Rico, in Humacao, and also in the global community in many online platforms. So I look forward to hearing some of your insights and encourage healthy dialogue. I love your feedback, and I look forward to seeing you in the next training or one of my next retreats. Talk to you soon. Bye bye.